Welcome to Interpreting Assessment Data, Standardized Tests. This presentation was made by Hannah Hemsath, Abraham Maskey, Jessica Moffett, and Liz Wagner. Let's get started. Standardized testing is nothing new to the world of education, but we hope you learned something new from this presentation. First, we'll introduce you to standardized testing and a background of what this means for ELL students. We will then go on to outline potential problems with standardized testing, followed by solutions to those issues. Another key point in standardized testing is considerations for interpreting results. Standardized testing is a test that measures a student's proficiency in a given area. These tests require some sort of data, which will be mentioned later. Some examples of ways to test include essays and exams. Next is low-stakes versus high-stakes testing. The difference between these two tests is the result. Formative assessment, such as a thumbs up or thumbs down, can give immediate feedback, whereas high-stakes testing usually results in consequences that can take great effect. For example, scoring low on the ACTs can affect college admission. Other examples include driving tests for a license and the ELPA 21 to determine English supports needed for ELL students. Earlier we mentioned standardized testing requires data. It is important to recognize that testing data should identify new learning. Data can also help teachers understand where students are in their learning. Other uses of data are to revamp instruction, compare between students, and reveal students' needs. Lastly, standardized testing uses some sort of scale score. Different scores mean different results. Usually, a lower score indicates lack of mastery versus a higher score indicating mastery. Keep in mind that scale scores are not the same for all standardized tests. One score does not equal another score in another test. Part 2. Problems with standardized testing. Part 2. Problems with standardized testing. One of the main problems with interpreting the results of standardized tests is validity. Validity refers to how accurately an assessment measures the skills and concepts intended. It is important to keep in mind that if the test measures language skills and that is not the purpose of the test, then the results are invalid. CLD students with limited English proficiency have lower results on standardized tests. Thus, to mitigate this validity issue, accommodations are given to students. These accommodations may include the use of dictionaries or extended time. However, allowing students accommodations also affects validity, and more research must be done to determine the impact. Another validity problem is that CLD students are often not as familiar with American culture. They have not been in the United States long enough to know or understand all of the cultural nuances. When standardized tests require knowledge of American culture, the test does not accurately reflect the student's knowledge and skills. Oriented speededness shows how many items are answered correctly, whereas fairness-oriented speededness demonstrates how examinees' scores are negatively impacted by a time limit relative to other examinees. Speededness affects both accuracy and reliability. Additionally, it can also negatively impact content validity. An error score is the number of items an examinee fails to answer correctly and can tell us a lot about our student. Standardized tests don't necessarily allow us the tools to calculate an error score. This diagram can be a little tricky, so let's break it down. This diagram analyzes questions that were incorrectly answered. First, we'll focus on the questions that were contemplated. A student chooses either not to answer a question or to answer but does so incorrectly. On the opposite side, we have questions that resulted in an incorrect answer because either the student randomly guessed in order to have an answer or the question wasn't reached in the first place. Notice the randomly guessed right bubble does not factor into the error score. Reliability can be skewed by environmental factors such as home life, test format, lack of sleep, and stress. Part 3. Solutions to testing issues. One way to solve testing issues when assessing ELL students is to make accommodations. These may include additional testing time with frequent breaks, ensuring a comfortable learning environment. Remember, we are always trying to see what they know, not what they are unable to answer because of the language barrier. As educators, it is our job to make sure the tests we are giving align with the curriculum we are instructing. Once this has been achieved, incorporate the proper modifications and accommodations. As educators, we can't stress enough the importance of providing students opportunities to navigate practice tests. ELL students need to know and understand what they will be taking so they are more confident and do their best. Taking advantage of early learning opportunities helps ensure a high quality of learning takes place. While a majority of the time this isn't possible, it is important to be proactive to promote successful testing in the future. Programmatic solutions refer to the overall learning environment. This is one way educators can help promote better testing results for each student. Environments which are supportive and focus on positive teacher-student interactions are optimal. Through the use of small groups and collaboration, opportunities for peer interactions increase. Peer interactions contribute to language acquisition while also allowing students to use their native language. To gain better results, educators can also focus on the following: explicit vocabulary instruction, designed around ongoing assessment, using small groups and one-on-one instruction, and providing a program structure that will lead toward academic achievement. Properly educating teachers so they are better equipped with skills necessary for valid testing is yet another answer to solving issues with assessment. Research also shows that increased family engagement may impact students' testing abilities. Part 4. Considerations when interpreting standardized tests. When deciphering how to interpret data from standardized testing, it is important to take into consideration the following. Did the creator of the test consider validity? Does the test measure new learning or prior knowledge? Was speediness taken into consideration when the test was administered? And what accommodations were involved, if any? You have the data, now what do you do with it? Reflect on the purpose of giving the assessment. Decide which type of data will be most beneficial for your purpose. Once considerations have been taken into account, you are hopefully left with information which can improve your ability to make data-driven decisions. This Venn diagram shows a comparison of focus of data usage between a classroom teacher and a school district. As you can see, interpretation of data varies depending on purpose. In conclusion, standardized testing is used to measure data based on students' mastery of a subject or task, and can guide teachers in their instructional decisions. Standardized testing often includes issues with validity and reliability, but when used appropriately, these problems can be resolved. Ask yourself the questions mentioned earlier in the presentation for interpreting standardized tests, as this will help guide your decisions. With this information, we hope that you will be able to consider these key components with your students and staff when using standardized testing. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.